reality.
Hey, yo, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Concrete Reality TV, where we strive to know more and do more with what we know. If you would like to know more and do more with what you know, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. I am Ephraim Acapella.
It's your boy Cutter.
Your girl Danny.
K Fred in the house.
OG2 in the building.
Today's special guest is from the unforgiving streets of BMO, aka Baltimore, Maryland. He is a father that decided to translate his relentless fight for primary custody of his sons into a memoir and novel that's meant to provide helpful tips on how to navigate the systemic barriers that fathers may face when seeking to obtain their parental rights. We have Mr. Corwin Melvin, author of Just a Dad, sharing lessons through his life as a single father. How you doing today?
I'm doing outstanding. It's a great day to talk to you folks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Corwin, you're an author. Were you always an author? Did you always want to become an author, or did something happen in your life that caused you to want to do this?
Well, years ago, one of my best friends said, "Hey, man, you've done a lot. I mean, been through a lot. You have some of these experiences. You should write a book." So I kind of had that in the back of my mind, but I never really pursued it. Then I met this amazing young lady. She said, "Hey, you talked about this book. Why don't you do it?"
So the name of the book is Just a Dad.
Yes, sharing my lessons.
I guess we can start with the whole marriage, because that is a key component, in my opinion, from what I've studied with the whole process of fighting for custody, who gets who and what with the children, the assets, as I call them, the children gaining custody, or you being given custody of those children. I know it's a lot of variables that the legal system looks into with the mother and the father and who would be the best fit. Was there any reason why you were considered the primary candidate to be the primary custodial parent of the children?
So there are some things in there. And like when I talk to guys or whatever, and then like I talked about, visitation or custody or visitation, even if you don't get custody, you can get more visitation. But I've said, so I tell them one thing, the things that you have to do is you have to be present. You can't just say, I want to be a father, and you don't know who your kids' teachers are. You've never been to the school. Nobody knows who you are. Yeah, my youngest son was in daycare and childcare. Your kids, providers don't know who you are. You don't know where they are academically. You're not doing homework with them. You're not reading with them. You can't say, well, I want to be this person when you barely know your child. All you know is the fun stuff. So that's a part of it. But in this situation, there were some issues out. There were some domestic issues, and like I said, I don't want to put too much out there, but put it like this. There were some issues, some domestic issues that gave the court an idea that maybe this person isn't the best person for the kids because of her relationship with him. Because they see it every day where, dad's coming to court, she won't let me see him. She won't let me see him. She won't let me see him. There's that. And then, of course, I was retiring from the military. I make pretty good money now. I was getting out. I was moving to a situation where, there wasn't this fear, he could deploy, he could do this, he could do that. So all of that was off the table. So now I can be a full-time father without the thought that I wouldn't be there. So all things equal, if we were in the same place, same headspace, and financially we're in the same space, then there's probably no way I would have been given custody of my sons. But when somebody is coming into court and they're not being honest, because I told her, I said, you know what? A judge is not going to ask you a question that he doesn't already know the answer to. So when you're up there lying to him, that's doesn't look good. So okay, you're here lying about small things. So why would I trust anything big to you? So like I said, I just presented myself as, hey, this is who I am, this is why I'm here. I don't have anything negative to say about her. But when somebody is up there telling a judge all these things, when my whole record is in front of them, my whole record speaks for itself. I have all of these people, offering information about me, who's standing up for me, who's supporting me. So when you're saying these other things, it's just not believable. And she was lying. So all of those things come together, and they're like, well, why would we trust you when this person has basically opened his life up to us and told us everything we need to know.
I got a question for you. Like I said, you put a lot out there, but I do have a couple of questions. So first thing, one of the things that you mentioned is that you were financially astute, meaning you had money there to pay for legal representation when you're in court, because like you said, that's a long process, and of course that adds up over time. Correct?
Right. Not to cut you off though, but not to cut you off. I didn't say I paid for anything. I went to court without a lawyer. I didn't have an attorney going through that process. She did. I just went through, me and my best friend Dave sat there and just supported me. That's it. So when you have truth and honesty on your side, you don't have to pay all that money. So no, I've never had an attorney for that.
I have a question if I can interject, Kate.
Absolutely.
Of course she does.
Here we go. Here we go.
I mean, listen, this is a lot of meat on this bone. So, my book is a memoir as well. And my book talks about growing up fatherless and all the things that we went through from not having our fathers in the home.
Absolutely.
And that's not taking anything from my mother. But when you are the primary parent, whether you are male or female, and like you had mentioned, there were some domestic things that had went on in your marriage and so forth, being a responsible parent, if the domestic issues or the mental illness or the things that the other parent is doing to cause problems and constantly attack you persist, how did you feel it was your responsibility to protect your children from that further trauma? What did you do to keep them, their mindset and their safety as your priority? Or how did you navigate through that process?
That part wasn't a difficult part because, like I said, they've always been with me. So we're constantly in conversation. We're constantly talking about things. And one thing they never got from me is I never talked negative about her. I never talked about, our relationship and the things that were going on with him. The things they saw or heard were things they just heard in the house or whatever kind of stuff. And even then, to this day, I've never cursed at her like that. I've never yelled at her. I've never called her out of her name. Not even going through all of that. Never. Because for me, once I decided that the relationship was over with, we don't really have anything to talk about. At that point, now it's all business now. Now it's about me preparing myself for when you're not here anymore. So one thing she can't say is she can never tell anybody that I ever cursed her out, called her a bitch, called her anything out of her name, because I never did any of that. So they never saw any of that negativity from me. So for them, they could always lean on me. If they had issues or if they didn't, they could always lean on me and say, well, Dad, how about this? Dad, how about that? So, and then when I did recognize that, it was more than what I could do myself, that was when I got my oldest son, took him to a therapist so we could talk about it, so that he could talk to somebody that wasn't me or her and really, share his feelings, and then he could talk through it. So a lot of it was just, being there for them when they had questions, answer those questions. And then when I recognized that something was not right, taking the steps to make sure that I got them squared away. Like I said, the biggest thing that kids want is to be present. You can have $1 million, you can have $1. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It's are you available when they want you to be available? Are you there when they need you to be there?
So how do you protect your children from, like, for instance, and I try not to put my son's business out there, but he's young and I would love for him to hear from a man that went through this, because he's young and he has a baby. And because his relationship with his baby's mother did not end well, the family loves her. We respect her. We think she's a good mom. But now it seemed to turn into a power struggle where it's like, I want the baby to live with me so that my say-so is a priority. And the baby is being used as a pawn and a tool and things like that. And I'm just trying to say, how do you focus on protecting the children from constantly having to go back to court when somebody doesn't really have valid reasons, but they keep making accusations or they nitpick every little thing that goes on? And then number two, when do you think it might be okay for a parent to say, you know what, the other parent is not mentally healthy enough to be around the child, and so instead of them having access or visitation, I think it's in the best interest for me not to give them that access right now because they need some mental help or whatever. Like, the difference in how do you navigate that from a man's point of view?
Well, one thing is, saying that a person has mental issues or doesn't have is mental health, that can't be your opinion. Just because you don't like them, you think they're crazy. A lot of that is his personal relationship with her. She doesn't like him, so she's going to do whatever it takes to get under his skin. So like even in the book, like I said, and what I had to do is, people are like that as long as they know that they can get a rise out of you, that they can affect you. And once you show them that shit doesn't matter anymore, whatever you say is what it is. I don't, you're not getting to me, then they stop. A lot of times people give you as much energy as you're willing to take. When you stop taking that energy and you stop responding, then they try to find something else to do. So my message to him would be, take a step back. Think about what's really important, your access to your child. The only conversation you need to have with her is when it has to directly to do with what has to be done for your child. And then go to the court, and ask for these other things. Say, hey, this is what I need. I need a guardian for my child. I need to make sure my child's interests are being taken care of. I need to make sure that I have regular access. That no judge, if a man walks into court and he's presenting himself in the right way, and he says, I just want to have access to my child, most judges are going to allow you that access. But if you're coming into court, oh, she's a bitch, I can't stand her, we don't get along, it's not about you and her. It's not about how you feel. It's not about how she feels. Once you get that emotion out of it, then it gets a lot easier. But it's hard. It's just initially it's hard just to get the emotions out of it. That's where all of that anger is coming from. When you can look past her, all of that bitterness, this, that, and the other, and just say, I'm not here for any of that. The only reason I'm here is to have access to my child. Unfortunately, there's only so much protection you can do for the kid. You can only do so much. Kids are going to experience it because they're around you, they're around her. If she's mean and bitter, she's probably going to be talking nasty about him. So all he can do about that is be who he is, be the man he is, always be consistent and always be respectful to her, even though you don't like her. That's still the child's mother. So be respectful to her. You don't have to put up with her shit, but just be respectful. And then anything else, you don't even have to entertain. So it's about taking the emotions out of it.
How much do you think that the gender of your children played a part? Do you think it'd be different if they were girls?
It may have been different, but I wouldn't have done anything any differently, because I would have felt the same way about them as I felt about my sons. I'm here, I'm able, and I want to be able to raise them.
Yeah, as far as how the court would see it, those, let's say, two girls versus two boys.
The court would probably look at it harder. It probably would have been a tougher decision to make. And 9 times out of 10, they probably would have, they may have, I won't even say they would have, they may have ended up with their mother. But I don't even know if I don't feel like that's a definite, because I feel like I gave a strong case for having the ability to do it. So the only difference for me probably would have been, I probably would have got married again sooner. I probably would have got married because I would have needed a woman in the house, because 3 girls and I would have needed some help. But so that's the only difference.
Hey, question. When you were married, I think I heard you mention that she was German, or was she
No. She's from here. She's from DC.
Okay, so
my first assignment, I got an assignment to Germany, and I wanted to take it with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what it was. I made a dumb young guy decision. I was like, oh, I really like this girl. We're having a good time. I got this assignment. Let's go. That's what it was. So it's like, it's hindsight. It's 2020. We were separated probably less than a year into this marriage. I mean, we separated several times throughout the marriage. Stayed together. I later went to England. I brought her over. That's where my oldest son was born, in England. So we went back and forth with this marriage for a lot of years or whatever. There were good times, and then there were times where it was rocky. But then towards the end, it just got to where I just can't do this anymore.
Let's open this wound, and I'm not opening too much here. But you did definitely say that y'all did have to experience some domestic issues. I've seen online, and even around, even when we've done topics on this particular subject on our podcast, some men having to pull out their phones to record, not to necessarily embarrass anybody, but to make sure that they have record of certain incidents that may have happened. Have you ever had to present anything like that in court, and how did it? What was the outcome like?
Well, this is back. So this is back before the, record, this was flip phone days.
Oh
So,
Lord.
so I got divorced in
He did say 20
2007.
years ago.
Yeah, my
Oh
divorce was
man.
filed in 2007. So I separated in 2005.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
we were still flipping
So
phones back then.
you didn't have to have any like police reports or anything. You never have to, call
Oh,
the
there was
police
one.
or get the law
Yeah.
enforcement involved, anything like that.
Oh yes, yeah, there was one of those. I had a protective order early. I mean, through that process, so there was a protective order in there early. And like I said, that's why she was removed from the home because of a protective
Mm,
order.
So
So because
do you believe that if somebody has such extreme domestic issues that it's not healthy and it's going to persist because they just really are extreme and they don't care about the well-being of the children, that once the relationship has ended, even that parent should have access to the child, being the primary parent, without having supervised visits or something like that, if the domestic issues were more extreme?
I've never been anything that was that extreme.
mm,
But I have been in a situation where I just knew that, yeah, this isn't how this is supposed to go. I don't think that relationship with a child that person's relationship with that child is not the same as that person's relationship with the other adult. So I don't think that how I hate you should have anything to do with how I treat my child. Now, if that person showed those kind of issues with the child, then yeah, you have to limit that kind of stuff, that access. But I don't think that because unless this person's really putting somebody in a hospital or this, that, and the other, just super violent and doing all that kind of crazy stuff, then that's the law enforcement and the court should be dealing with that. That should be the issue that's being dealt with. I don't think that because we don't get along, I shouldn't have access to my child.
Right.
mm. Even after you won custody, did you file for child support or anything like that?
Initially, there was a child support order. I didn't even ask for it, but initially there was a child support order, and she was paying. She had to pay, so she wasn't real happy about that. But I mean,
Mm,
that was while I was still in the military. But once I got out the military and got a job, got a real job, child support, there's that calculation, and it's based on the total income, and percentage of income. So I made so much more than her. And she has such a low percentage. It was like 70-30 or 80-20 or whatever, the percentage. You know, 3 kids, I think it was like 30 something dollars was how much she would have had to pay child support. I said, keep
So
so
it.
she
now we
wasn't
talk
happy about that.
just briefly. We ain't talking about child support and debt, but this new talk now that the Trump administration is saying if you receive child support, you shouldn't be able to claim the kids on taxes. You just mentioned that her child support would have only been $37 a month because of her income ratio
Right.
to yours.
Exactly.
Would it be fair, in your opinion, if a parent is not paying half of the children's expenses and you're the primary parent, that just because they gave you $37, you can't claim the kids on your taxes?
I talked about that with my fiance last night. She said, "What do you think about that?" And I told her, I said, if I'm providing more than 50% of a child's care, which most people who are paying child support are not. Because if as a custodial parent, I'm providing housing, I'm providing food, I'm buying clothes, I'm paying daycare, I'm paying for every sport they participate in, I'm paying for every club they participate in, I'm buying tennis shoes every couple months. Because my sons are I got two 6'10", so I'm buying $250 worth of tennis shoes every 2 to 3 months. So for you to match that, you would have to be giving me $2,000 or $3,000 a month.
Right.
Right. So there is no way that I would think it's fair for a person who is paying less than half, and I'm talking total, not just cutting a check for $400 or $500, should be able to claim their child. No way, because it's just not fair. It's just not fair. See, that's Trump trying to appease a certain
All right.
group of people. So he
Oh,
says
real quick.
anything.
I got to chime in on that one real quick, if I may.
That's fine.
So first off, that little thing right there, from my understanding, it's not even
It's
real,
rhetoric.
It
Right.
wasn't
It's rhetoric.
right?
Yeah, it's rhetoric.
Yeah.
Right, but it's a topic that's going around publicly.
Yes.
It's talk. That's all it is. But it was
Yeah.
nothing that was said by the Trump administration. We
Right.
keep it concrete reality. That's the real.
I appreciate that. Yeah. No
Now,
question. No question.
Number two, I get what you're saying in regards to that, and I'm gonna open up the can on that little topic that's been going around. There are men that don't pay $37 a month.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There are men that pay quite a bit every month, especially if you're a man, like you said, where the tables are turned and you make a lot of money, more than the mother, right? Then that means you're paying more than technically what she's paying or what she can even afford for herself. And you're
Absolutely.
giving her that lifestyle. So in that argument, yeah, I could see where it would play a part depending on how much that man is paying in support. Um, Also, the other part too is that you said it's the state of Virginia, so I get that, but I also know other states play differently when it comes to the role of child support, as well as who's going to have legal and joint and physical custody. And some states are favorable more to mothers than they are to men. The other
Absolutely.
part too is in other states, there's a benefit for the state because they can charge, interest up to 10%. Let's say in the state of California on back child support. And so
15%.
continuously keeps racking up for a lot of those men. I would say that you are one of a small number, right? And so for your story, I most definitely could appreciate. I think for me, it would be, what about those men who don't, like I said, have the counsel, or let's say the financial aptitude or the stability, but yet and still they've made a choice and are being denied that right. You had the benefit of being a military man, having that stability, what comes along with it. And through the military, like you said, you were in there, they provide insurance, they provide all of that. So in that instance, I can see where they most definitely awarded you custody as far as the stability factor. But there's a lot of men out there that don't have that. So my question to you, with all that being said, is what would you recommend to those men who don't have the stability? You said earlier, once you noticed, you begin to get prepared. What was a part of that preparation that led you to your final end where you were awarded that day? What were the things and the steps that you took?
I think a big part of it was emotionally. I was preparing myself emotionally for not having this person and being able to do all of these things with all three of them. So I had always been engaged with them. I mean, from the time that they were born, I was always there at the schools. I was always doing all these things. So when I say somebody should prepare, I think that if you say that you want to have this access to your children, you want to have custody of your children, then you should be engaged in all of these things. You shouldn't be, even as well, I don't think most dads, even if you're in the house with your family and your kids, I think there historically the mother did everything for the children. The mother did the homework, mother did all these things. So it was easy for the court to say the kid should be with the mother because the mother did all those things. So for men, I tell them, I say, well, if you make the decision to have children, one, it should be a decision. And two, if you make the decision to have children, then you should be present through everything in their life. You can't just pop in and out. So for me, preparing not to be in this relationship, because the things that I did with my children, I always did, from the time from their birth. So I didn't have to change anything with how I handled them or how I managed being with them. The change was not having this other person. Whatever a couple $100 she was providing, this, that, and the other, the job she was doing, the income that she was bringing in, the times that, I had to work, because there was a time when I had to work two jobs because didn't want to work, so how do I manage those things? And a lot of it was just preparing mentally. And a lot of it was just making sure that, as I was exiting the military, that I knew where I wanted to go. I knew where I wanted to live. I knew where I wanted to work, so as I was talking through all these things, like even this all came out in my divorce and my custody, my second custody issue. I knew all of these things, so I kind of had all these things planned out. Things go south when you don't plan, when you just act on impulse. So once you realize the relationship is over with, now it's a business decision. Everything I make now is a business decision because the emotions are out of it. So now it's about, okay, what's my plan for my sons? By the time my sons was in middle school, two of them was 6, 7, and playing basketball. So now I need to make sure I need to put them in a position that, okay, so if they get an opportunity, to maybe go to college or just that and the other for free, then I need to put them in a situation where they can have those opportunities. So once I realized that things were going south with this woman, I knew it's all business now. There's no more emotional decisions. There's no more I'm pissed off at you, I can't sleep at night. There's no more of that.
How old were you when you got married? How old were you?
I was 24.
24.
Yeah, I was 24, but age and maturity are not the same.
Right, right.
I was
And then,
24 in the military, having a good time.
yeah, you
So
said that lasted for how many years?
I was married for 17 years by the time my divorce was final.
17 years. Wow.
Yeah, it was a fight, and I gave it every opportunity to be successful. I mean, I've worked through a lot of things, you know, in that relationship. I put up with a lot of stuff in that relationship, you know, and like you say, once you start having kids, man, it's hard to walk away from your children. You know, it's hard to say, oh, you know, I can't stand this person, but I do not want to leave my kids or lose
Yeah.
access to my kids.
I think what happens is men who wants to be involved in their children's lives, it's definitely difficult for you to walk away from your children because of someone else.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
because you love them more than you love that other person,
Right.
because they are part of you. So what happens is you put up with a lot of bullshit because you love your children and you know how the court operates in your mind. So until you figure out and you get the right information and say, you know what, I could probably win this thing. Fuck it, I'm getting out of this shit.
Right. And
So
even if
that,
you can't get
yeah.
custody, right? But even if you can't get full custody, you can still get more access. You can still get more visitation. You know, they have this guideline or whatever, and they usually throw out the same thing every other weekend, da 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 da, this, that, and the other. Most people just go with it, you know, because a lot of guys aren't really built for more than that. But if you are and you want more, then that's the opportunity for you to ask for more, you know, so that you can do these things. So you know, if you present yourself in a way, hey, like I told my ex, I said, I'll tell you what, if you got custody of my sons, you see me every day. I said, because I'm gonna live right up the street. I said, because they will have access to me. They're not gonna not ever not have access to me. They'll be able to come to my house just like they go to yours. You know, I have nothing. I did a talk with Donnie Glover from Baltimore, and he said, "Oh, that's stalking." No, it's not, because I don't have a relationship with you. I could care less what you do. All I know is wherever they are, I'm going to be close enough that they have access to me. That was the gist of it.
I think it's more of the effort that you put as a father that the court really looks at. They look at your
Yes.
effort and how you pursue it. Because for me, this is an odd statement for me, because I understand that, you know, my sons will move to Japan for like a year,
Yeah.
and the pursuit of being in their lives, you know, because of the time change, what's going on, was difficult. But I knew as a father that I wanted that access. So I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, or I got up at 3 o'clock, made phone calls, and we talked every day.
Right.
My phone bill was high as hell, but we talked every day, you know, just because I understood what my influence was. And see, once you understand that as a father, you know, you understand how you can influence your children from miles away.
Right.
And, you know, I understood that, you know, the road was tough. It was ugly sometimes. And like you said, once you detach yourself emotionally from that other person, it's just business.
Once you can get past the emotional aspect of it, because we're driven on emotion, and women more so. But so once we can get past that emotion and understand that it's not about you anymore. It's all about my kids and doing what's best for them and trying to allow them to be the best that they can be. So if it means I got to deal with you to do that, then I'm going to smile every time I see you. We're going to talk when we have to talk, not because you want to have a conversation. And we're going to keep it pushing. And when we go to court, I'm going to say, hey, you know, I need access to my children. This is what I can do. This is what I'm able to do. This is what I'm doing for them now. I'd like to be able to do more. And most courts, even now, most courts, most judges are going to look at that and say, hey, here's a dad, a black man who wants to be involved in his children's life. You know, why wouldn't we want that?
Just to go back to a little bit with what you and K. Fred were talking about, I'm curious, just kind of looking at the narrative, the circumstances of your novel. Is it a bit of what I would call post ad hoc rationale, where you kind of using hindsight 2020 understanding and then presenting it as a proper preparation rather than your random circumstances working out in your favor? Are you presenting it in that way, or is this kind of like, hey, we realize that each state is going to vary on that maternal custody history, where they typically would give the mother, which is normally the custodial parent, the, you know, primary custody, and then the fathers would end up having to be, you know, secondary and got to fight for their parental rights. It is what you're presenting. Is that is it lack of knowledge that men don't have this parental rights, or is it that there is a system that's set in place that is biased towards mothers?
I think the system is traditionally biased towards mothers. And I think part of it is our fault. Part of it is we haven't all black men haven't always presented themselves in a way that they wanted that responsibility. A lot of them have been okay with walking away and seeing their kids every other weekend. So if 90% of if anything is one way, then you kind of assume that everything is that way. So I think even in states where the track record says that moms always get the kids. I think that any man who is really prepared himself to be able to take more and more of that responsibility, if he presents himself in a way that to a court that he can do that, I think a lot more would get that opportunity. Whether it's more visitation or even custody. I think a lot of times we just society says. So that's ingrained in us. We automatically assume that we can't do this, we can't do that. I think if more people wanted it and were prepared to do it, I think it would happen more often.
I would partially agree with you. Okay. I think on some levels, I think that would hold true if you know what to do. But I think for a lot of these brothers, like you said, if they're having children young, right, and they're in their, late teens and the early 20s, or you even pushing, 27 at that matter, if you don't really even know enough about life at that point, then how can you know how to navigate the legal aspects of being a father and being and understanding even what does joint custody mean? What does physical custody mean? What does legal custody mean? And then what's the caveat? What are the things entailed? If you don't know that, then you don't really know what to ask for. And I don't think sometimes we deem it as just a choice that, we say these brothers don't want to be a part of their life. But as you stated, you can admit that there's difficult mothers out there.
Absolutely.
And if there's difficult mothers out there, then how do these young men know how to navigate the difficulty of the mother, especially when everything tends to be in her favor? And then you don't know the legal court. And like I was stating earlier, and then you don't have the money to access legal knowledge or legal counsel, you see. And that's why I said, I commend your story, and your effort, but it would also be the other side for the brothers who don't have that or don't understand that, or it's not saying that they don't want to, but you don't even know what you don't know, and you can want something all day long. And if you're trying it and it's not working for you, then I can see where a lot of them will just say, man, I'm done with this. I give up, and so for me, be setting a foundation for how brothers prepare themselves. Number one, I tell my son, and we have a very open conversation because he saw what I went through, and he goes, "Oh no, pops, I'm cool. I don't need no woman, and I don't need no children." He said to me, "It's hard being a man, right?" Mm-hmm. And I think only through him watching me and then being without me, does he now as a man understand where his limitations lie? And then as we're open and honest, then he understands what he needs to do to prepare himself. So it's through my struggle that I can pass that on to him. And though I may not have been there, right, it doesn't in any way disenfranchise or take away from the relationship that we have now. I think if anything, he longed for it more because he was denied that opportunity. And for me, even with all my kids, I got this saying, because I have difficult mothers. See me when you get 18. I mean, your life ain't done yet. This is the first 18 years. You got a whole life ahead of you. And that's the part that I'm there to guide you on. So I think we as fathers may miss out on that point where they're moving into manhood. My job still ain't done, even with my girls.
Right.
You see.
Your job's never done.
Yeah, it's never done. So just because you're denied that for so many years doesn't take away from who you are as a father or a man.
Let me say this as a mother. Number one, my whole book and growing up, my father didn't have a difficult relationship with my mom, and that's why he wasn't involved in my life. My father was killed in a car accident before I turned 2. But nevertheless, I got the experience of growing up without the father that my biological father in the home. I would say that it's important to have that as a child. And I don't think that it's right for people to be so emotional, whether it be male or female, to be so emotional that you hinder that opportunity for your child to have both parents or have access to both parents. I will say that I agree with you, K. Fred, and I do agree with you, Mr. Melvin, in regards to, I think that there's different dynamics depending on where you live. I think there's different dynamics depending on what is the norm in that area in the court system and what the people don't know and their age. And I think that a lot of times when you're young and you're a parent, it's like babies having babies. You're not prepared. You don't know the resources. And sometimes you haven't even learned how to control your own emotions to not cut off your nose to spite your face.
Absolutely.
And I think that one of the things that you had mentioned when you were saying you were going through the court issue with your baby's mother or your ex-wife, that she went in and it was all emotions. It was emotions. It was emotions, and her just trying to bash you as a person, not expressing how she could be a good parent as the primary parent for the children. And I think a lot of times when people come to me and they talk to me about, going through the court system and trying to get access to their kids and all of that, I think a lot of times it's exactly that. You're hearing the anger, you're hearing the emotions, and I've been there myself. But I think that when it comes down to it, and I have assisted 2 men in getting full custody of their children in California, just by giving them that same pep talk. Don't go in there bashing the other person. Just show who you are, things like that. And like you were saying, I think that if you represent yourself properly, even in those states where it's rare, it's possible. But kudos to the fathers that are willing to fight, because growing up you don't know if your child's going to make it to 18. You don't know if you're going to make it to 18. Having that relationship younger is a benefit. Not that it's always possible, but it's definitely needed.
When I talked to, I was single for years. So I met a lot of women who have young sons and who have young children, especially young sons. And I would always tell them, even if their father isn't involved, you can have strong men in your son's life. You can have mentors for them. You can have them around positive male influences, because sometimes the father isn't it. The father can be an idiot. The father can be an asshole, and he might not be it. But there's nothing that says that you can't have strong men in your son's life that can teach him these things that his father isn't capable of teaching him. So I definitely lean on that. And I think, like I said, the emotions. And then as far as dealing with these difficult relationships and difficult others, the spouse, whether it's the man or the woman, people act a lot different when they realize that the shit is not working anymore. When they realize the crazy doesn't excite you, or doesn't get you angry anymore, then they act a lot different. And if they don't, at some point the system is going to recognize how crazy they are also.
I think what happens throughout the course of a divorce or a course of a relationship, that one of the persons in the relationship, they weaponize the child, and now they feel like the child belongs to them and not the other person. So, but what we have to understand is that, we made this child together. Without me, there would be no child. Without you, there would be no child either. We use this analogy. If I give you a seed, does the seed belong to the person that I gave the seed to? Or does it belong from the person that gave the seed? Mr. Ephraim, take that over from there.
No, it kind of leads to the discussion of responsibility and the ownership of the byproducts of that seed, meaning analogous to, hey, we had this kid together. I gave you, the semen, you formulated the child and gave birth to the child. Does therefore the conduit by which the child is born and enters the world the owner of that byproduct, or does the owner of the seed also have some sort of equal ownership of that offspring, or total sole ownership, because they were the one that brought forth the seed that was utilized to be planted and then give birth to this child? And I'm sure you're going to have your opinion on it, Corwin. If you are married, legally legitimized through the government and recognized as a union, and you produce offspring, gain assets, basically treated like a business entity, but then you guys divorce like many go through, and then you were referenced in your life experience. Does it change the court's view and perception of you and your wife and your children versus someone that had children out of wedlock? And then the courts address that. Do you think it would be the same perception from the courts?
I think it's more difficult for the man outside of that because you're not already in the same place, same space. I think there's an easier fight, not necessarily easier, but it's a more even fight if you're in the same home. So if you're in a relationship, you're married, and you're in the same household, then it's an easier fight to fight. If you're an outside or whatever, she lives over here, you live over there. She already has a child. So am I going to take this child from this mother to give it to his father? Whereas we're in the same place. So I'm not taking anything from you. You're not taking anything from me. So I think it's probably easier because we were married, because we were in the same home, because there's no I'm taking this child. There's no perception that this child is being taken away from one to the other. So and there's not that stigma that goes along with it. Because I know my ex, I was probably killing her every time she had to tell somebody my kids aren't with me. My kids are with their father. I know it was killing her. So it would have been even. I think it would be even worse for a woman if she has a child, she's over here, and then the court takes the child away from her, even though it's not really taken away from her. He's a father, he's a parent also. But the perception is that, oh, you're taking the child away from this woman and giving it to his father. I think that I do agree that that's probably more traumatic.
Because in that event, you're disrupting what's normal for the child, and you got to have a valid reason as to why that would be warranted.
Right, depending on the age of the child. If the child is young,
And
if the child is a baby, then
that was my next question to you.
Then
how old was your youngest when you began the divorce proceedings?
4. They were 4, 7, and 10.
Oh,
so he was still in daycare.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, so that's pretty young.
At any point, did they ask the children what they would like? Because I think at around 11, at least in California, they're able to talk to the children and ask the children what they would like. Did your children ever get to voice their opinions?
They had guardians. They had a guardian ad litem assigned to them in both cases. So they were interviewed by the guardian multiple times. I'm not really privy to that conversation. My sons never came to me and said, we want to live with mommy.
Now, if they had would that have been something you would have been open to?
I don't know. Because I didn't feel, no, I wouldn't have been open to them just living with her. Because I know what that would have meant. I know what that would have meant. I don't think that, like I said, I had 3 sons and they were all very active. Not everybody is built for that. You're talking 3 kids, 3 different age groups going in 3 different directions. For me to be able to do that and they're with you, you're not going to do it. So their opportunities are going to be limited because you're not going to do those things that I would do for them as a parent. So none of that probably would have made a difference for me.
Do you think that you were a better parent than the mother? Or do you think that it was because more or less you didn't want another man raising your children?
I think I did better with them than she would have done with them. The difference, the thing about it is, I think that she would have been okay with them because I would have been right there. Everything that would have been considered a shortcoming for her, I would have been right there. But how fair is that to me to have to do all of these things because you aren't willing or able, more willing to do these things? Why should their lives be affected or have limitations because you've got to the limit of what your capabilities are or your willingness to do these things are. So if I try to give it a value, I would say I think as an individual parent raising my sons, I think I've done a much better job than she would have done as an individual. But I think she would have been okay because I would have been right there to pick up the pieces.
You mentioned a lot of difficulties during this process. What to you was the hardest part about going through this whole process?
I think it felt like it was hard going through it because it was new. And like I said, I was learning on the fly. I was talking to folks and, I was trying to, a lot of it was just, trust my gut and just go for it. The most difficult part is the not knowing, because I felt like I was doing everything I needed to do. I mean, and then I just kind of just sat back and let her, just be herself. You know, she came to the house. She had the opportunity to grab her things from the house. Like she took like the kids' piggy banks. She was doing like petty stuff. You know, she took the lawnmower. The judge is like the social services lady, like, why would you do that? So now he's got to go buy another one, which means he got to take money away from your children to go replace these things that you took from the house that you don't even need. You know, stuff like that. So I kind of just sat back and just allow her to do her thing, and then just let that all play out. And then the hardest part was knowing that somebody else is going to make a decision, you know, on my life and my kids' future, not really knowing me. You know, all you know is what I present to you. You know, so somebody making that decision, not knowing if there's going to be a bias in the court, not knowing, you know, judges having a bad day, you know, not knowing any of these other things. The most nerve-wracking thing is just to not knowing what the outcome could be.
As far as dating as a single parent, how often and how soon after meeting someone did they get to meet your children? When did you start feeling like it was okay to bring in someone permanent into your children's life? Did you wait till they were in college? Did you wait? Or how did you include your children in your dating process after you got full custody?
Okay, when they were young, like I said, my youngest was 4. So when they were young, so probably he was 5 when my divorce was filed. So I didn't really start dating until after probably a year or so after. After my divorce was filed, I kind of like started dating. So then, but even with that, you know, I'd meet people or whatever, and I would tell them, I say, hey, I'm a single dad. I got 3 sons. They're very busy. They're very active. You know, so I don't have a lot of time. You know, so I wasn't really looking for a relationship during that time. I think for the first 5, 6 years, I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have like a relationship. I dated people. I had people that I saw, you know, I had friends or whatever that I would hang out with. But everybody that I met or whatever, I would explain to them and they would know. And of course you meet people, oh, it's okay, you know, they love this fact that this man has his kids, this, that, and the other. They see, oh, how responsible I am taking care of things. So they want to be a part of that until there's a Tuesday and they want to hang out, or a Thursday night and they want to hang out. And then they're like, oh, well, you don't really have time. Well, you know, I told you that. You know, I told you I'm busy. I told you I got 3 kids. You know, so of course I'm not going to just be able to drop everything and hang out with you on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, you know. But if you want to plan something, I said I can plan anything because I'm here in the area, my family's here, you know, so I can work around anything else. But there's a certain level of commitment, time, and effort that has to go into, you know, like managing and maintaining a relationship. So I knew while they were young that wasn't going to happen. So I didn't even put myself in that kind of situation. I didn't really, I think I dated somebody seriously when my sons got, I think my youngest was in high school, you know, was when I first found somebody that I really liked, you know, and I really wanted to commit that kind of time to. And at that point, you know, their mother had already been remarried again, you know, so they had seen us in other relationships. So it wasn't a big deal. But while I was dating, I think they probably met before all of them were out of high school. I think they probably met 2 people that I dated.
I recall you saying that you didn't have legal representation during the divorce, right?
Well, during my custody, I had legal custody before my divorce.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you didn't have legal representation
No,
then.
no.
Because so it's almost like, okay, so you knew the person that she was. So it's almost like you knew exactly who was going to show up to court. So was it because you didn't have the funds, or is because it was a slam dunk case for you?
One, I didn't have the funds. You know, I was retiring from the military at the time. You know, you're in the military, you're not making a whole lot of money. So who really could drop $4,000 or $5,000 for a lawyer out the break? So I didn't have the funds. But once like I said, I started talking to folks, and then I was like, well, we're gonna see what happens. You know, so I just, you know, winging a prayer. You know, they say trust God, and see what happens. You know, because that's all I had. You know, I at no point I didn't even entertain. You know, I talked to some lawyers because I just want to get an idea of what the cost was going to be and what the whole process was. But then initially, when I was talking to those guys, I was talking about divorce. I wasn't even talking about custody because I didn't think that was even on the table.
Well, I think that brings us to our conclusion because we want to know about that book. Where can they pick it up?
Where can they pick it up?
Well,
do you have the ebook as well as the hard book, the
yes.
physical book? Okay.
Yes. Well, let me tell you what we're doing. So I was taking pre-orders on my book because that'll allow me to provide a signed copy on it. So that link is actually in my bio everywhere, and I can provide that link. So that'll allow me to send a signed copy. But after February the 1st, it'll be available on everything, both ebook and hard copy. Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, all of the booksellers will have it available, both e and paperback.
Now, did you self-publish the book or did you go through a publishing company?
I did it all myself. I did it all myself. I'm one of those people that just like with my custody, with my divorce, with all of these things, I don't have a problem, we're doing some research, figuring it out. There's so many tools that are available nowadays to a writer that there's a lot of things you can do yourself. And then with like Amazon, and I use direct to digital to publish my book. So with those guys, they have templates for the cover. You can bring out they do all the work for you. So basically, if you write your book, you do all your editing, your proofreading, and all those things. Those services will do a lot of the other legwork for you. As far as the editing, and I did all that myself. So I'm a first time author. I don't have a budget. So this is a labor of love. So anything that comes out of it is just that. It's like I said, it was just something that I felt like I needed to do. I'm already started working on my second book. As a matter of fact, I had so much fun writing this. I've already started on my second one. A big part of my life has been all my sons are athletes. So you talk about travel basketball, AAU basketball, high school basketball, all these other things. So I'm writing a book. My next book is about the dad, or it's called a basketball dad. And what it is about just not every kid is an All-American. Not every kid is going to the NBA. But there are a lot of kids out here who play sports, who can go to college for free. Who a lot of kids out here who can just enjoy just playing team sports, and the mentor, the friendships and the relationships they build out of that stuff. So it's for a parent that has kids who are athletes, who are good athletes, who may not be pros, but who can still get the benefits of their abilities and that kind of stuff. So
I can't wait, because that's another little segment that we do on the show that we're going to have to bring you on for when you finish that book as well, because that touches on pretty much that particular segment that we do.
Yeah, I took three of them through the process: college recruiting. Two played in college. My oldest son would have played in college, but he's towards ACL in high school, his junior year in high school, and that kind of derailed his basketball career moving forward. But my other two they played college ball. My youngest is still in college playing ball. So I've been through that process.
Yeah, we got one of the coaches on here, OG too. He did the same thing for his career. So when you said that, I'm sure his ears perked up. Told him he need to do the same thing. I was like, man, you need to do a book. You need to write a book about all that stuff you didn't experience in the collegiate realm.
He been saying that for like the last 10 years. I just
I tell you what, I said that. Like I talked about it, and like I said, my fiance said, "Well, why don't you just do it?" But and I'm actually helping a friend of mine, Ricky Goings. He's out here in DC, basketball guy. He said, "Man, I would really like to write a book." He saw what I was doing. I said, "Man, I'll tell you what, I'll help you." And for him, I just told him, I said, form an outline. What do you want to talk about? And then just take each one of those chapters. You grab your phone and do voice to text. And just start talking about it. I said, just start talking about it. I said, because once you do that, you can import that anywhere. So just talk about it. Then, because once you get it out and you start reading it, then you'll see so many more things that are part of that, or that can enhance that story. I said, the biggest thing is just getting started. And with technology nowadays, you don't necessarily have to type it all. A lot of it you can talk it in, you can talk it through, and you can use your voice, and that'll help you get started. And then you can just clean it up on your computer, this, that, and the other, or use some of these tools to help you with the editing, with the spell check and grammar check. There's so many different things that you can use that, the only thing you really need is time.
And one thing that I tell people too, because a lot of times people ask me about, man, I want to write a book and this and this and that and that. And one published author, actually big published author, I sent her a piece of what I was writing prior to years before I published my book. And the best advice that she gave me was write at least 30 minutes a day. And that doesn't, like you said, it could be auto to text or anything like that, voice to text. But she said, if you don't write, if you don't get it out, you have nothing to edit.
I'd be in my car, I'd hit my phone in my car and just start talking. Like I'm at a light, of like something would come to my mind. I was like, man, I remember the story when I did this, or when my son did this. Then I'll just talk through it on my phone right there at the light. So that's the good thing about technology. Is the thing is it's right in the palm of your hand. So, all you hit a button and it's just a conversation. So you can enhance it, you can move it around, you can do it, this and the other once you move it to one of the other devices. But just having a conversation, you're having a conversation with yourself, talking through an event, talking through an experience. The harder part was what not to put in it. you know, what the limit is, because there are some things I talk about, some relationships that I had that well, you know, probably shouldn't have had. No, so I talk about a lot of stuff in this book.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
yes,
you.
sir. Congratulations on that.
Congratulations.
Yes.
And then, like I said, be sure to check out that book. We have Corwin Melvin, author of Just a Dad. So be sure to check that out. And we appreciate you coming on to Concrete Reality TV. We look forward to the future endeavors that we'll encounter with each other. Be sure to like and subscribe this, share it. And then as far as any newbies, be sure to do the same, subscribe so you can get more content and you can get notifications about any new episodes that we come up with as well. So as always, we are out. Peace.
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 As you can see, I was raised in the streets.